In an earlier video, I showed you how to build a list of all of the forms and reports within an application. And the resulting report is this, what you see on the screen now. So here's the list of forms, and here's the name of the form, which is what the user sees. Here's the internal link name, which is what the deluge name or what's used internally. And if we scroll down a little bit, we'll see the reports also have the form link name that the report is based on, because each report is based on a form. Now we also have a section to describe, to document what that form report is all about. So there's a field in each record here where you can put in the details. Now if you're writing documentation, you need to kind of see what you're documenting. So this custom action button will open up the related form or report. And this whole video is describing how those custom action buttons work. Okay, so here's the report that I just opened up. So you can see all the information here. This is it tracks when each part of the system was used, which is another useful thing when it comes to documenting. But so this is the report that we're describing in here. So let me show you how these custom actions work. And what I've done here in this tab, I've opened up the report. I'm in edit mode for the module report. I come down to custom actions, and you'll see I have a custom action called open. If I click on the word open, I will see the details for how this custom action works. And the name of the action is open, and it's going to be shown for each record. It can be shown for the report header, and I'll show an example where that is useful. And we can select that this custom action is only available for certain records. In this case, if the record, if the module type contains form or report, we want this button to be active. If this was either a schedule or a function, well, there's nothing to open in that case. So we don't want the open button to do anything. So the open button will only be available if it's if the type is a form or report. Okay. Now it's going to be in this application. We're talking about the application shell, which is what the application we're in, and we're going to select a namespace of custom action. Each of your functions can be grouped in areas called namespaces, and it could be if you had several functions that relate to email, the namespace might be called email. In this application, we have another namespace called format, which is where we have functions that format phone numbers and things like that. But here we're concentrating on the ones that are in the custom action. And right now, we only have one function under this custom action namespace. And I've got a button right here so I can edit the function. And here is the actual function. So what we do is we pass the record ID that we're working with, and the first thing we do is we grab the module record based on that record ID, so we fetch the record, and then we have all the fields available to us. So we first look at the type. Is this a form or is this a report? It won't be anything else because we've made sure that the custom action button is disabled for any other type. So if it's a form, we compose our URL statement with this information. We have the module link name, and once again, I'm not going into the open URL statement. There's various ways of composing it that do different things, but in this case, this is the format that I chose to work best with this particular application. And we're going to open it as a pop-up window with a height of 800 and a width of 1000. If the record type was a report, it's almost the same. The second part of the URL is a little different, and we're going to open with a slightly wider, because reports are generally wider than forms. So this is the code that goes behind the open button, and of course this could be very complex. I've seen functions that run a few hundred lines, but this is pretty straightforward. All right, so let me just close out of that. Okay, and if I come to the column properties, you'll see that it looks like any other field, and you can drag it to any spot within the report. But in this case, it works best to have the open as the very first field. It just makes sense to the user. So that's one way a custom action can be done. Let me show you another example where it's used in a very different sense. So here is an education application, and we have each student listed. Here's a student's name, and we can change the final grade by clicking on the custom action. So I'm going to give this student an A, and you can see there's the A. Without a custom action, I would have to open up the record, go to the grade section, which who knows that on the left, on the right, and then I have to save the record. And if you're putting grades for 20 or 30 students, that can take a long time. So let me go back to assign this student a grade of NA. All right, now remember when I said that you can have custom actions that are in the report header, and I'll show you how that works in this case. So let's say these 3 students all get the same grade. I can come to our custom actions up here, and let me give them all a B. And you can see how quickly that is. So let me select them again and move them back to NA. Okay, so you can see that's very, very quick. And let me show you how that works behind the scenes. Okay. All right, so here's the custom action. We'll click on the A, and all right, and let me go in and edit this particular function. And once again, we just pass it the record ID. We grab the record, and we change the field of final grade to A. And it's the exact same logic for the other grades. So if it was a B, I come in here, and you can see we have it selected so it show the action in the report header, and show the action for each record, so you get both choices. And let me just go into the custom function for letter grade B, and you can see the logic is exactly the same with the change of the letter. Okay, now let me close this and close this one. Okay, now we're back to my demo application. Now, like I said, we can get to the function by going into custom actions, and we can see the custom actions that are associated with this particular report. If I want to see all the functions within this application, I can click on Workflow. Okay, and I can open it in another tab. And once again, in complex applications, you'll see 50, 100 different functions. Okay. Now this is not a complex application, but let me go into the list of functions, and you'll see the functions that we have grouped into the different namespaces. This first one is in the default namespace. Here's our view module that's under a namespace of custom action, and we also have one for formatting. Now, like I said, I'm not going to be teaching you how to build functions. That's a whole different topic, but let me just give you some of the basics. For a new function, you give the function a name, and we can put it into one of the current namespaces, or we can make a brand new one. And then you have what information is going to be returned from the function. Now, we didn't show anything that had a return value, but it might format a phone number, and you want to return the formatted phone number. So the user types in just the numbers, and a function could format that to have parentheses, spaces, dashes, so it's much easier to read, and it just passes that value back to your individual form in that case. And you can also add arguments to a function. So, like I said, this is not a description of how to build functions. That's a whole other topic. But the Zoho documentation has a lot of information on building functions, and Most of it's the same script as you would use in other parts of the application. So, this is a little explanation of how custom actions and functions work together, and how you can build some very useful features that save the users a lot of time. So I thank you for your attention, and I hope all your functions work properly.